All right, I'm back with This Week at Tassi, my weekly news roundup show. Big launch for me and my community this week. We'll just start with Destiny Rising. It is the first Destiny game since Destiny 2 came out in 2017, and it's a mobile gacha game, so that's not ideal in some ways, but this has been tested for a long time now, and there's been like kind of this growing sense among testers, especially Destiny players, where it's like, this is actually okay, if not kind of good. And now kind of everybody gets to jump in there, and the sentiment I've seen is largely positive. I think that this is by NetEase, which is the Chinese developer who also made Marvel Rivals. This game has been in the works for years and years and years, predating the Sony deal, and it's a kind of weird setup because it's likely that most of the revenue is going to NetEase, and Bungie was only sort of like cursory involved in this, but I think Sony, despite not being part of this deal, is really hoping that this does well and kind of expands their reach into mobile, which they don't really have. So it's launched, people got their hands on it, and again, I think it's pretty good. I don't play very many mobile games anymore. I've essentially never played a mobile shooter. Here, I could not really just play this on my phone. I don't think I could tolerate that. That's just not who I am. I did try that in the early stages, just like with a controller in my phone. But I am using my wife's very large iPad, and I know you can also emulate on PC with Mumu emulator, which is like native with NetEase, and you can do pretty good mouse and keyboard controls. As of now, I'd like the ability to sort of move my gaming around as much as I can here for some flexibility with my kids. So I'm doing that. Realize that my wife's Apple Pay is hooked up to her iPad, so any big spending in the game is going to have to be explained away as a business expense here. But it launched, it was the number one, I think it was the number one free game on at least the iOS store. I'm not, hugely surprised at that, but between that and players, I don't know, it was a lot of social media presence among my Destiny folks, with people posting their impressions, saying that they liked it, posting their polls, things like that. Obviously, this is going to need to be kind of a longer term test to see if people stick with it. I predicted that I think it can carve off, at least a portion of current Destiny players that you might actually notice. Destiny's in a very low point right now, even with some fixes and backtracks they've had. It seems time like people just appreciate something new, and this feels pretty good as a shooter on mobile in terms of like how it relates to Destiny. Obviously, it's very stripped down and it's certainly clunkier, but if you play it, you're like, yeah, this feels like Destiny, and everything you're doing here, from story stuff to at least a lot of the weapons, all the powers from the characters, it feels new. The gacha stuff, I'll probably do a whole different video on that, and that is going to be something that is going to have to win over some people, and eventually it's going to get kind of slower and slower progression, and we'll see how many people stick around after that. We'll also see how many non-Destiny players play this, but it is going to be hard to get like actual player data. So big launch in the Destiny community. I mean, it's a pretty big launch for mobile gaming in general, given the size of the Destiny franchise. So next up is Starfield DLC. This was confirmed that there was going to be a second DLC for Starfield, along with some quality of life updates. This was in video about one of Bethesda's longest running people. I can't remember their name, but they started on Oblivion, and they confirmed that there will be another DLC at some point. It doesn't seem to be imminent, even though the last DLC, Shattered Space, was 1 year after Starfield launch. This was reported earlier that this was probably happening. It was also reported that the DLC was set to launch alongside a PlayStation release of the game finally, which I think it seems pretty obvious that Xbox is going to launch Starfield on PlayStation eventually. That was not confirmed. We did not hear anything about that. And again, that doesn't seem like something that's going to just spring out at us this fall, but it could be. People are giving me a lot of shit because like I wrote an article a while ago, talking about why Starfield didn't have more DLC. And then I wrote about how now it does have DLC. The point of that whole last article was like, it doesn't have DLC because it wouldn't really make sense to make DLC because the last DLC had such a poor attach rate. It's one of the worst attach rates I've seen for anything we have numbers for, like I've ever seen. It was like, I think it was close to like 5% attach rate or something. If we're talking about, the players we can see on Steam, you can look at the graph. It's like the tiniest little blip you'll ever see. Like you can compare it to like Phantom Liberty or something. And there's really no spike there. It was like the previous month was like 14,000 players and this was like 21,000 players. So I'm like, there's no way they're actually going to invest in another DLC, right? And they did. So it's surprising. I still don't think it's a good idea. So I'm remaining consistent in that regard. But I don't think those two articles are in conflict with each other unless I'm missing something. Another big story this week was the launch of Helldivers 2 on Xbox. This is kind of like one of the ultimate like console war truce moments in the sense that, we've had Xbox just sort of shoveling all of its games, like kind of past and present, over to PlayStation, which just seemed a little one-sided. But here, PlayStation is offering the olive branch of what is probably its most current successful live service game in the form of Helldivers 2 over to Xbox, when previously it was just a PlayStation and Steam launch. It's done really well on Xbox. Tons and tons of new players checking it out for the first time. And like many live service multiplayer games, you would want the player base expanded as much as possible. Sony has said that their plans are a lot of multi-platform live service releases in the future, as opposed to their single-player games that they sort of just keep locked down. I believe they were talking about like they're going to release everything simultaneously on PC, but now this indicates they might do more on Xbox. Stuff like Marathon, like Marathon's already going to be on Xbox because that was like part of Bungie coming over, was that they were not changing their original plans from having Marathon be multi-platform. So that wasn't going to be locked down in the first place. What's going to happen with Fair Games? Is Fair Games going to Xbox? I'm just kidding. Fair Games isn't coming out. So that's a really big success story there. Player count went way up for Helldivers to a point it hasn't been in a very long time. That even had trickle down effects to like Steam and stuff because there was a new update with a lot of stuff. Oh, and the most important part of this, I think, is the really awesome ODST crossover they did for the launch of Xbox. It's just sort of like it perfectly aligns. It's like the biggest Xbox brand. It's totally in keeping with the Helldivers universe. Really cool items, all this classic stuff. The only sad part is that all the Halo updates we get now are Fortnite skins or Helldivers crossovers, and we have no idea what's happening in the future with Halo, specifically Master Chief, despite hints of like, yes, something is coming eventually. But yeah, this is the state of Halo on Xbox right now, but at least this was pretty cool. Speaking of skins, there was a news item about how Call of Duty is not having Black Ops 6 skins carry over to Black Ops 7. This is in response to something that, well, this doesn't usually happen anyway, but like the idea here was that they want Black Ops 7 to be a more grounded military on theme experience than what Black Ops 6 ended up being, with its crazy amount of crossovers to the point where, in recent months they're getting things like completely animated Beavis and Butthead skins and American Dad skins, and like this started with like Michael Myers, and then it progressed to like Homelander. I think they did like Terminator at one point. And it's gotten to a degree where it's like Seth Rogen is a skin. Like what are we doing here? So I think the idea here is that they want to go back to basics. This was something that was brought up a while ago, but it really came up again when Battlefield 6 started talking about it. DICE started talking about it, about how they're like, yeah, we're going to keep grounded skins. Like, we don't think we need Nicki Minaj in our game. Nicki Minaj was in Call of Duty. Ironically, that was probably one of the most normal crossover skins, if we're grading on a curve here. My question now is like, where is the line for Black Ops 7? Are they just not going to do any crossover skins, or are they going to do, agree to do some sort of on brandish crossover? Halo ODST, that would kind of work for Black Ops 7, honestly. But like, I do wonder where the line was. Like, would they do Homelander again, or is it just that like Beavis and Butthead is too far? So I'm very curious about the line there and how that's going to be. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. The final story here is this past week. It was the 1 year anniversary of Concord being killed. Sounds like sounds a little more bleak than I meant it to, but of it being shut down 2 weeks after launch. I did sort of a retrospective on this, and I still believe it is the worst video game launch of all time, if not like the worst video game disaster of all time. And this even includes things like ET games being shoved into a landfill. Just across the board, the amount of money this costs, which is anywhere from 200 to 400 million, depending on some estimates. Like even if it's 200, that's still insane. To the amount of years it took, I think it was upward of 5 years, and then Sony bought them with like 2 more years to go. Sony just being completely clueless about this, where they genuinely believed that Concord was about to be some like new multiplayer-based tentpole IP for them, which is not something that's obviously happened. And then the shutdown. You don't see games shut down after 2 weeks almost ever, and certainly not ones that high profile. So Concord has been sort of a cautionary tale, and now we have a lot of like, this is the new Concord things, and like people are saying that about Marathon. But I don't think people realize in context of like just how insanely awful this was. It was historically awful to the point where it is genuinely hard to believe that I don't know when this could happen again in the next decade in terms of a launch that bad. So flashback to that, not a news story per se, but just something that was interesting. So that's what I got for now. I'm going to go play some Destiny Rising and get deeper into that. I'll do probably a more in-depth review on that on Monday, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.